announce this next item.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence. We have apologies from councillors Minery and Price. They've submitted their apologies in advance. Councillors Adam and Blundell don't appear to have joined us yet, so if they don't, I will record their apologies.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, we'll go on to our usual item next, which is the disclosable pecuniary interest, which I will read. Members are reminded that they must not participate in the discussion or voting on any matter in which they have a disclosable pecuniary interest and should leave the room prior to the commencement of the debate. Do any members have a disclosable pecuniary interest to declare? Looks like no. So I'll move on to the next item now, Lynn, if I may. Item 3, public questions.
Thank you, Chair. There are no public questions.
That's a surprise, but we'll carry on. And now we'll move on to item 4. Before I go actually onto that, I just wanted to mention that I did have a meeting via Zoom on Friday, of which the Chief was also a member, which was of the Fire Commission, of which there were 79 participants. So you can imagine what that was like. But one thing we did have was a presentation from the new Fire Minister, a gentleman by the name of Lord Greenhouse. He was recently knighted to take over this role. And he gave a presentation of about 20 minutes or so, followed by questions. I did send to Lynn, hopefully she received it, a letter that he sent to us on the 14th of May. And I thought it appropriate, following the conversation that we had from him with him on Friday, that I should respond. Because I think it's fair to say, and I do feel this, I think we finally have a Fire Minister who seems a reasonable sort of a chap with 16 years of experience in local government and a fellow Lancastrian. And he did come across very, very well and did say on a couple of occasions, and Rod's there to back this up, that he was interested in keeping in touch with local government association members and appreciated the work that councillors did, which is something that's not come from many ministers recently. So I hope you all received a copy of the letter which I sent out. Sorry, it was last minute, but I only agreed it yesterday because this happened on Friday, so there wasn't much time. And I sent out that letter to the Minister, which you've had a copy of this morning. Hopefully everybody's received that. And I hope you agree that that was the right thing for me to do. Certainly I do feel that we need to have a conversation when it's convenient with the Minister. I'm sure he's got lots of responsibilities, but just pointing out where we are in a number of things, not just for me personally and what I'm involved with, but us as a fire authority where we are down the road. And so we'll wait, hopefully, for a response from one of his team, and I'll keep everybody informed as we go forward. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that before I move on to the agenda item.
Chair, Councillor Harton has his hand up.
Okay. Nigel.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think it was a very good letter. I've read it. It seems to set out the position very clearly, and so I'm hopeful that we'll get a positive response from the new Fire Minister. I think it was a very opportune time to correspond with him.
Thank you very much for that, Nigel. I do agree. Does anybody else want to comment?
Chair, Councillor Sahorta.
Yes. Called it. You're on mute. You're on mute. Still on mute. Still on mute.
Okay.
Yes, that's better.
Okay, finally got there with a mute and unmute. Yeah, I read the letter. It was quite good, actually. And, you know, let's hope he will listen to us And like you said at the end there, the last line, if it ain't broke, why, don't fix it. So I thought that was a good line. Yeah, so let's hope he does listen to us, and I agree with the letter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, that particular quote, Rod will remember, that was the previous minister when we had a meeting of HMIC FRS, and Kit Malthouse, the previous minister, did ask for questions, and I was able to, there was only 3 questions I think in the time allotted, and I got that question in about where we are, and that was a comment that he made. I will say that I don't think he actually followed up on that, but that was a statement he made, and so I thought it was relevant for us to mention it. But we are now dealing with a minister now who is starting from scratch, and hopefully he will be listening to what we have to say.
Chair, the Chief Fire Officer would like to comment as well. He has his hand
Okay,
up.
Rod, you're on mute. Oh,
Yeah.
that's better.
I hadn't started talking, Chair. Thanks very much. I've just come off a conference call with the NFCC, and they've had a fair amount, particularly Roy Wilshire's had a fair amount to do with the new minister over the last few weeks, as you understand, through COVID. But one of the things that was roundly recognised from everybody who's had any experience of him so far, were the early indicators feel very positive. He seems to have a lot of enthusiasm. It's interesting that, being a Lord and on the House of Lords, then he comes from a rather different position with a more assured and secured place to maybe look at some long-term change for the Fire and Rescue Service. And certainly the thing that they were aiming at, we were discussing mostly, was the idea of the Fire and Rescue Service taking up a wider resilience role. And if you think about the question that was posed by the HMI to the government to consider what is the future function of fire and rescue services and what is the future function of a firefighter, then I think it's a good time to have a new person with a fresh set of eyes. And the experience of him, certainly when he was in London, was that he's got quite a lot of zeal for reform. And so I think that all bodes very well for the Fire and Rescue Service.
Yes, thanks for that, Rod. You and I agree on that, and hopefully other members, when they get the opportunity to hear him, will also understand where that's coming from. We'll have to wait and see, but certainly the early signs, and this wasn't just coming from myself, after the feedback of the Fire Commission, I spoke to a number of other delegates following that, and they had the similar feeling, and this was cross-party, that he did seem as though he had the brief prepared, and also was prepared to listen, because obviously, and he did admit this, it was new to him, so he's starting from a position of scratch basically, but he just seemed really, really determined to listen to all sides and to not take a position based upon previous experiences, but to judge for himself, which is the right way forward. So I hope that works that way. So thank you very much for that. Does anybody else want to comment before we come on to item 4 in detail? Okay. Well, sorry,
I was to say that the Chief Fire Officer has his hand raised again.
Oh, Rod, sure. Mute.
My apologies. My apologies. I thought I'd brought it down. Lower your hand. I was trying to lower it, not raise it again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chair Chris Mullings might have a comment.
Okay, Chris, yeah. You're on mute at the moment. That's
Sorry,
better.
Chair. I used the chat. I'm never quite sure sometimes whether it's better to use the chat or anyway. All it was, obviously, it's encouraging to hear his attitude to the service per se, but obviously that's only part of the jigsaw, part of the story for us. The other critical bit, which is the item I think that you've largely picked up in your letter, is the issue of governance. And I just wonder whether at this early stage, whether it's possible to tell what his attitude might be, or is it still very much I've got an open mind on everything at the moment, and how it relates to government policy generally, because obviously if there's a drive from government to change governance structures, then whatever his personal view is, then that may not be necessarily helpful to us. But if it is a genuine open mind and prepared to listen to a strong case, which we obviously have, then that's that's helpful. But it may be, as I say, it's too early to tell, but that's going to be quite critical for us in the short term, at least, is what the attitude is to governance issues.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think the way that I tried to express in my letter to him that we were wanting to negotiate was And that's the reason I've mentioned where we are down the road with the judicial review to a degree. And in his letter, he did say he wanted us to contact him to say where we are on different aspects. It was the first meeting that he's taken part in, because he only started, I think, the day before or 2 days before. So it's very, very early in the procedure. But certainly the initial letter that I've sent, I'm hoping that we'll have a response back. And following that, I'm not going to sit and just do nothing. We will be wanting to have a debate. There is a meeting of the Fire Services Management Committee in June. And by then, and he will be speaking at that, I am told, by then he will have had a month to get his feet under the table. And I think that will be a time when we can actually push forward to say, right, Minister, where are we with this? And you know, hopefully he'll have responded by then.
I agree, and I'm sure we'd all support your efforts in trying to persuade him of the strength of our case. So thank you for following that up.
I think also I might touch on that, and I did touch on it in the letter as well, was the fact of the strategic review that we're taking and the strategic alliance that we've got a meeting, virtual meeting on the 28th of this month, which is next week. And that again is something which I think certainly it came across on the emergency services group that I sit on, that it was something they wanted us to share with them as best practice. And I'm hopeful that that be one of the main criteria that he takes on board as to why we should be allowed to get on with the method that we're taking at the moment. So thank you very much for that. We'll move on to the agenda item now, item 4, which is report from myself. And I'll report on this in June each year, because this is, if I might just say, this is basically coming from Anthea, because we did have a meeting of the group leaders quite recently to suggest, I had a suggestion to make that we look at moving the AGM forward because of the situation that we're in from June. And at a meeting of the group leaders, it was agreed by the group leaders that we should move to October, to the 14th of October. But Anthea made it quite clear, who's our new monitoring officer, that this had to be, according to the Constitution, agreed by the Fire Authority in total, which is why we're having this meeting today, to put this recommendation forward and to give people a chance to address it. And so I will just carry on to say, in June each year, the Fire Authority holds its annual general meeting. This is part of the Combined Fire Authority Constitution, and in accordance with that Constitution, the authority is required to appoint a chair and vice chair, members to serve on its committees, and to allocate seats on the committees in accordance with the political proportionality rules and to reflect the overall political composition of the authority. The report is presented to promote a debate as to whether the AGM should run as per the programme work plan or should be deferred until a later date. So there's a recommendation there at item 2 that we're asked to consider and decide whether the annual general meeting should continue in June or should be deferred to October. You've got underneath that the background and the current position where we have this. There is a slight anomaly in there, because I did point out at the time when I made this comment that after speaking with James Brokenshire and having commented with him, there was a notification from Shropshire Council that they had deferred their AGM until later in the year. And it said Telford and Wrekin have deferred. That's not strictly true. When I was speaking, it was that they hadn't made their mind up at that point. Since then, they have decided to continue. It's actually happening tomorrow, and they've got a meeting of the AGM tomorrow with about 21 members present to look at the, I think probably with having the new chief executive wanted to decide what they're doing with the cabinets, etc., etc. So that there states it's been deferred, and that's not strictly true, so I apologise for that. The current position, after an initial period of uncertainty regarding the protocols and legal requirements of governance, the service has created infrastructure to enable members to hold virtual authority meetings in a way that meets statutory obligations. This required significant training for members with chairs of committees needing to develop their skills and as yet the efficiency and effectiveness of the virtual governance has to be fully tested and reviewed. Legislation has clarified that decisions made in a virtual meeting are as good as decisions made in a normal meeting, providing that a democratic process is followed, that the procedure was fair and transparent as possible. If there were a legal challenge, it is considered that the authority will be able to defend its approach and processes. The Fire Authority AGM is scheduled for the 24th of June, and the question posed to members is whether the AGM should continue or whether it should be deferred to a later date. As I said previously, the group leaders discussed the merits and challenges and agreed that in this period of uncertainty and with the backdrop of holding meetings in a virtual format, it would seem sensible to maintain consistency of chairing and operating in the current structure. This risk is that if there were a change around of members in the key roles, it could cause greater confusion to an already challenging period of governance. However, members have also stated openly how important it is for the democratic process to be followed, so any decision to defer can only be made by the full authority, which is why we're speaking to you today. The group leaders are all supported a proposal to the full Fire Authority to consider the deferment of the AGM for at least 6 months, with the AGM business to be moved to the Fire Authority meeting that is scheduled for the 14th of October. So that's what the proposals are. So now it's up to discussion. If anybody wants to make a point, now is the time to do so.
Chair, Councillors Harton and Sahota have indicated that they'd like to speak.
Thank you very much. Nigel.
Yes, thank you, Chair. That's interesting news from Telford and Reeking, but I don't think it necessarily changes my view in the respect that I think that given the situation we're under, a period of stability is one that would be advantageous for the authority for the time being, and so I'm still of the mind that that a deferral to October would be a reasonable thing to do, and so I'm quite happy, if you haven't already done so, to propose that we do so.
Thank you. Goldie, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm okay now.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much for that report, Eric. Like I said, and like you mentioned, we had a discussion earlier on, the group chairs and the group leaders, sorry. And after sort of like all kinds of discussion, we agreed that it would be appropriate for us to defer it to October, like Nigel said, and then I fully agree with that, because it's been more or less informally agreed, and then I'd just like to say it formally. Yes, I support that as well. Okay.
Thank you very much, Goldie. Any further comments?
Chair, Councillor Wynne has indicated he'd like to speak.
Okay, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I totally agree. To save getting mixed up, change of faces, positions, whatever, it just seems madness. A deferral is far more sensible, so I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to comment? Otherwise, I'll ask for a recommendation and a seconder for item 2 on the recommendations.
Councillor Harton.
I'll second what Councillor Harton has proposed.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that?
I am seconding it.
Okay,
I've already proposed it, Eric.
Sorry?
Eric, I've already proposed it. I think
you proposed it. Pauline is seconding. Do we have members to show of hands and all agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Is that acceptable, Anthea?
Chair, we'll need to just do a call because we can't see everybody on the screen. So
Okay.
can we go through each one in person?
Okay.
Okay, Chair. If you're happy for me to do that.
Yes.
Okay, so Councillor Adams isn't here. I can't see him. Councillor Blundell, can't see her. Councillor Carter, 4 against or abstain?
4.
Okay. Councillor D?
4.
Councillor Hartin?
4.
Councillor Mellings?
4.
Councillor Middleton?
You're on mute.
Councillor Middleton, you're on mute.
Sorry, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Milner?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Pardy?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Sahota.
4.
Councillor Thompson.
4.
Thank you. And Councillor Wynne.
4.
Thank you. So that's all members present have voted for the proposal, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Does that conclude our business then, Lynn?
As far as I'm aware, Chair, unless Anthea has anything that she wishes to add or
Anything more, Anthea?
Nothing from me other than safe to say you inadvertently promoted me, Councillor Carter. I'm Deputy Monitoring Officer at the moment, but just to avoid any confusion.
I'm promoting you too early, Anthony. Well, actually, can I say it's great to see you, and I've always enjoyed working with you, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind.
And can I, before we close, can I just welcome everybody for today's meeting and officers in the background, and say that I hope we all stay safe, and that's our members, our staff, all our firefighters. We're doing a fantastic job and we'll continue to do so. And I've said at the end of my letter I sent to the Minister, I'm very, very proud to represent this authority, and I'll repeat that now. So thank you all very much indeed, and a safe journey. Thank you.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.